katu mari frach jeres bavunen yizge tzadik katu mari frach jeres bavunen yizge
Hello everyone, this is the third in the series of eating and drinking in shul, and today I'd like to take a test case in order to understand this prohibition. In other words, we've given 6 different answers as to why is it that one Gemara says absolutely forbidden to eat and drink in shul, and on the other hand another Gemara says that you make kiddush because of people that are eating in shul, not to mention a Yerushalmi that says that's exactly what they did when they made a leap year. So, let's take a test case. I'm sure you've been to shuls during the week where after davening in the back of the shul there's a little schnapps, some pastries, and someone says it's a tikkun. It's for a Yartzeit. It's being done in the shul. Is it allowed? Let's go through the 6 answers and see. Answer number 1 is only Talmidei Chachamim learning full-time can eat in the shul, so obviously when you come towards the pastries there has to be a test on your learning. If you pass it you can eat, and if not, not. Answer number 2, only shuls outside of Israel would have this allowance, but not the shuls in Israel. Now I want to make clear, a Yartzeit meal is not a mitzvah meal. Rav Moshe Feinstein paskins, v'achasidim noagim b'chol batei knisiyot shelahen lahatir af bedavar hareshut mamash. They allow even a meal that's not a meal of a mitzvah, but a davar reshut, something you're allowed to do, but a mitzvah it is not. Like eating and drinking on a day of Yarzeit. Imkain, therefore, lomar, we have to say, shenohagin, like a certain point of view. And what is that point of view? That point of view is that Rashi and Agodoshri in the name of the Or Zarua say, shemutar al tanaya filu b'yishuvan lachila v'shtiya. That shuls outside of Israel are built al tanai on condition that you can eat in them, and therefore a Yartzeit meal only allowed outside of Israel, and Israel not. Answer number 3 is absolutely not. They only ate in the side room, so you better serve those pastries and schnapps outside the sanctuary. Answer number 4 is tzorech rabim. This is not a tzorech rabim, namely a communal need. This is a personal Yartzeit for one person or for one neshama. It would not be allowed. Answer number 5, seudat mitzvah. Like Rav Moshe Feinstein said, it is not. And answer number 6, it's for the sake of the shul, namely, you have to be in shul and it's for the sake of shul. The shul part is over. You said the Kaddish or you were the Chazan, so therefore you don't have to eat dafka in shul. And from this perspective, I'm not sure that it needs to be in shul. On the other hand, since that's where you're going to say Kaddish, and that's the only place you can daven before an Amud, maybe it is for the sake of shul. So we took a test case called Yartzeit and we asked, can you have a tikkun, a Yartzeit meal in the shul, based on the 6 answers we've given to the contradiction between Gemaras. Which leads me to the following point. What's the reason for this prohibition? And here I must say, one little vav can make a difference. When I came to Israel with the name Grunstein, all my family was written down by hand. Then, in those years, by hand. Gimel Reish Vav Nun, for some reason by me. The clerk didn't make the yud into a vav by just making it longer, and I became Grinstein, they became Grunstein. So a vav can make a very big difference. In this case, it does. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, the former chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, has the following conclusion in his Shut Har Tzvi. According to our Gemara and Megillah, as per Rashi, it says the following words: Batei Knisiyot, ein nohagin bahen kalut rosh, ein ochlin bahen, ve'ein shotim bahen. In a word, you cannot have light-headedness in the shul, and the example of that is eating and drinking. As Rashi says, the logar sinan, and the proper way to write the Gemara is not ve'ein ochlin bahen, as if it's another prohibition, but rather the kula ho perusha the kalut roshein. It's all because eating and drinking leads to light lightheadedness, leads to the opposite of solemnity that a shul requires. Tosfos agrees with this, that when he says that dafka achila v'shtiya, the have kalut rosh beyoter hu de asur, only eating and drinking, which is absolute lightheadedness. You eat, you drink, you're not really aware of your surroundings. That's what's prohibited. So that's if the Gemara says in one sentence, you can't have lightheadedness, and the example is eating and drinking. But if you read the Gemara as follows, but take nisiyot eno agin b'hem kalut rosh, period. You're not going to have lightheadedness. Prohibition number 1. Prohibition number 2, we're going to add on is ve'ein ochlim b'hen ve'ein shotim b'hem. You don't eat and you don't drink, then lightheadedness is not the reason for this prohibition. Comes indeed along the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, and both quote the Gemara that way. And they give examples of what kalut rosh, of lightheadedness, is. Kegon tzchok, stam cracking jokes, v'hitul v'sicha betela, and stam talking without a purpose. And then they add another prohibition. Therefore, the Gra infers, this is the Rambam, this is the Torah, unlike Rashi. Word, if you take out that vav, then ultimately the prohibition is because it all leads to lightheadedness. So if we can find a way to eat and drink without the lightheadedness, maybe it would be allowed. On the other hand, the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, based on their girsa, say eating and drinking is a prohibition in and of itself. So lightheadedness means one thing. Eating and drinking is a total different prohibition. And therefore, even if you can find a serious meal, like a Yartzeit meal, which is pretty serious, it would still be prohibited. The same can be said about a cemetery. Shulchan Aruch paskins batek farod ein hogin b'hen kalut rosh. You don't have lightheadedness in a cemetery for the same reason. It requires solemnity. And the Rama adds, kegon le'echol v'lishtot sham. You don't eat and drink in a cemetery. Comes along the Gra and says, the zel kalut rosh. Just like in a shul, the reason is lightheadedness. That is without the vav. But if you add the vav, the Shiltei Giborim says, Libi Omerli, the Sfira Leila HaRambam, the Din Ben Kvarot Kedin Batek Nisiyot, that it's a prohibition in and of itself. In a word, according to the Rambam, eating and drinking in a shul is a prohibition in and of itself. And even if it doesn't lead to lightheadedness, like a serious Yartzeit meal, it would still be prohibited. But according to Rashi and the Tosfot, if you can find a meal that's not lightheadedness, it might be allowed. From this perspective, you can understand why in a shul there's another prohibition. Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Kuf Nun Aleph Sif Aleph, ein maspidim b'hem. You don't have eulogies in a shul except for very, very extreme circumstances. Obviously, eulogies have nothing to do with lightheadedness. They're the opposite of lightheadedness. The body's right there. But on the other hand, if it's prohibited, then it's a prohibition in and of itself that probably stems from Kedushat Beit HaKnesset, the sanctity of the synagogue. So we saw today that we took a test case, a Yartzeit meal in a shul. Is it allowed or not? We first said, let's look at the 6 answers and decide. But then we said, what's at the crux of this prohibition? Is it lightheadedness per se, or no? It's for the sanctity of the synagogue. If it's lightheadedness, you have much more leeway, because this is a serious meal. But if it's a prohibition in and of itself that stems from the sanctity of the synagogue, then obviously the allowances will be far more.
Ohoy ginivim besaydu, ohoy ginivim besaydu, the shining meverananim yi, la hagit ki yushar Hashem, siri velo yavus boy, ohoy.